So, hello everybody and welcome to Politics. My name is Andrew, where I give you my takes on today's politics. Now, I didn't really know where I was going to go with this to start off, if I wanted to talk about things on Lives of TikTok, if I want to talk about trans, anything related to that. And then, as I'm wanting to start up my own channel talking about politics and whatnot, Steven Crowder releases his take on the big con, as he puts it. Now, obviously, Steven Crowder's a very conservative guy. He's been on YouTube for a while. He's very big, and he just left the Blaze Network. And in doing so, he was given offers, searching around, and we're just going to talk about this today because I find it very interesting, and I can't exactly relate to it, especially being a new creator in this space, but I can definitely see where I would go in this situation if I was ever actually offered stuff like this. So we're going to go through, we're going to watch a little bit of Steven Crowder's video where he talks about this offer that was given to him and how he feels how it's very unfair. And then we're also going to go through the response of the entity that a lot of people were speculating that Steven was talking about, because they actually came out and were very transparent with the offer that they gave Steven. So we're going to watch some of Steven's video here.
So stopbigcon.com now exists to begin with. It's been a while. Either this has to stop, or I'm going to have to stop. Either this, what I'm about to discuss, has to stop, or I don't know. This may just not be for me anymore. So let me explain. Give me a few minutes of your time because context matters here. I ask that you don't skip ahead. It won't take very long. This has been a long time coming. This is a conversation that I've actively avoided, sidestepped, and I've hoped and prayed that it not be necessary behind the scenes for a long while, but that's no longer possible. So if you've watched for the last decade, you know that I've always made it clear that we here at Mug Club are in the business of serving you, the viewer, you watching, listening right now. I've also made it clear that I wouldn't be in the business of attacking other conservatives, regardless of disagreements or personal issues. And I've always explained my logic was relatively simple. I believe that the world was better with more voices out there rather than less, regardless of minute differences, considering the magnitude of the battle that we are genuinely fighting for our country right now. But for the first time, I have to say that I believe many of those in charge in the right-leaning media are actually at odds with what's best for you, the viewer, the customer, and more importantly, the country. We here at Mug Club, we thought that we were all in this together, that we were fighting the media, entertainment, industrial complex. We thought that we were all genuinely taking it to big tech. But too many of those in charge of the big conservative platforms are verifiably in bed with them.
Now, I do want to stop here. We're not going to watch, obviously, the whole video. I'm going to cut things up and talk about certain segments, but I did want to play that little section because I do want to say I disagree with specifically who he's talking about here. Now, he could be talking about big conglomerates like Fox News and some of these other people, but I think who he's talking about, which obviously, if you're watching this video, you know who it is. The Dailywire is the entity that he's referring to when it comes to this proposal that he was given. I disagree that they're in bed with big tech to silence conservatives or to be against, the movement that we're a part of. I do think that it's probably just a difference of opinion with how Steven goes about fighting like hell, as you see, versus the way that the Daily Wire does it, specifically Jeremy Boring and Ben Shapiro. Obviously, they're very different personalities. They have different takes on things, and Steven was just saying how that's fine. I think that he had a very emotional response to the proposal that he was given. He probably felt insulted. He probably didn't think it was good enough, and Jeremy even says that Steven said he didn't think it was good enough and that it needed to be better. I think I'm on the side more of the Daily Wire than Steven when it comes to this little drama fused tension, disagreement. But I support the both of them. I think they're both great. I think they're both necessary when it comes to conservative voices.
Now, I'm specifically avoiding naming names or going after individuals in this video because I genuinely hope that those I'm addressing, and you know who you are, have a change of heart.
Everybody after this video knew he was talking about the Daily Wire before the Daily Wire came out and said, yeah, this was us. Everyone knew. I don't think not saying their names did anything, specifically because of some of the things that were in this contract that he was able to share without redacting names. It was pretty obvious. At least in my mind it was, and I think a lot of people, especially on Twitter, they were saying this is the Daily Wire hands down.
Don't sign contracts out there that include multi-million-dollar penalties for different... Let me read you an example of what I mean.
Now, if they're paying you what we now know to be $50 million over the course of 4 years, with an additional 2-year contract with, I think, an extra $25 million, those penalties would make sense because the company that you're now working for is paying you that money, and they also have to make a profit on that money. So
if Crider fails to deliver a monthly content in any month or any of the quarterly content in the corner, including any and all ad reads, and by the way, all these contracts came with 3, 4, 5 ad reads per show, which would fundamentally change what this show is. If I failed to do that, it would be a $250,000 reduction in fee per quarter. If, let's say, we did do everything per quarter, but annually maybe missed something, like let's say we went and did a Change My Mind instead of a daily show, which of course requires a lot more work, it'd be a separate $1 million penalty.
He's reading that wrong, especially after the Daily Wire, their response, which we'll get into here in a minute. Jeremy Boring goes through what that $1 million fee is talking about. The annual content would be something like Matt Walsh's What is a Woman? If they failed to produce a yearly documentary or a yearly whatever content, there would be the $1 million fee or reduction or penalty or whatever. It's not like he missed a day of Change My Mind, or he missed a day of, Louder with Crowder because he wanted to go film a Change My Mind. And because of that, he gets hit with a $1 million fee. That's not... I think he's reading it wrong. I don't know why he's interpreting it that way.
You get hit by a car, you have a sick day, you could lose $100,000 a day.
After watching the full video that the Daily Wire released, going through this word by word, and another thing is Steven, he doesn't go through the whole thing word by word. He's taking things out of context, which I don't agree with. Things make a lot more sense when the Daily Wire goes through this word by word.
Anyone wonder why there's burnout in this? Anyone wonder why you have kids come up and they leave and never to come back? You think if you had that kind of a penalty, you think if someone said, hey, we're going to penalize you $10,000 every day you miss coming into work, you think you'd be stressed?
Depends on how much I'm making.
This is worse than the left frames their contracts. Again, of course I didn't sign any of these things.
Now, do you know what their contracts are? I don't think there's many leftist organizations coming to you and saying, hey, this is a proposal we're going to give to you to work for us. So that would be a question I would have. How do you know what their proposals are like?
But I now know what other kids are signing out there. And here's the worst part. Yeah, that's terrible. I think it's, I just think that's wrong to treat people that way. But this is where, in going through this, and I need to take some time because, look, I've always tried to be a happy warrior, and I want to go back to that. I haven't been happy for a while.
And I think that's sad. I think he needs to be able to find happiness in what he's doing, and if he's just getting burnt out, go independent. Change up how you do things so you're not under contract. We don't know what his contract was like at The Blaze, and I don't think he would share that. Be an independent platform. Make your own schedule. If you're not happy with this proposal, you could have negotiated.
I haven't been happy for a while because when you know what goes on behind these scenes and you see how many people are complicit, it creates an air of hopelessness. It really does. Where you think the people who are supposed to be linking arms and fighting with you, fighting for you, want to punish you. So here's the worst part.
And I think that's just perspective, but I'm not in his situation, so I don't really know what he's talking about there.
the worst part. Do not, kids, under any circumstances, sign a contract with people who claim to be conservative, but will penalize you 25% for any demonetization or sponsor boycott. Look, let me read this to you. If any of the major platforms issues a content strike such that Crowder cannot be monetized on such platform, and the company is not able to resolve the issue within 90 days, the fee will be reduced by 25% moving forward. Now, I thought this was a mistake because, these people maybe didn't know who I am, that we've been demonetized for 3 years. No, it was made very clear to me in no uncertain terms. This is what's sent out to everybody.
And I do think that could have been a problem if this wasn't really curated specifically to Steven. But that's where negotiations come in, and I think he may have just had an emotional reaction to being presented with something that he found not worth it at all. Not worth any lick of anything that was presented to him. So, negotiate. I don't know what else to say.
They're making it known in their contracts that they will enforce the guidelines of big tech and punish conservatives on their behalf. Don't worry, Wojcicki. Trust me, these conservatives will stay in line. If they get demonetized, we take away 25% of their operating budget. Take another 20% away if they get a hard strike. Hey, don't worry, Zuckerberg. We've got your back. Hope to see you at the UFC Apex.
I really do see Steven's point here, because these strikes are unfair when you have a completely different worldview than the people that are running these platforms, and you just simply voice your opinion and they strike you down for whatever reason that they see fit. And most of the time with YouTube, they won't even tell you why something is removed, why you have a strike, where you can fix it. I do see where he's coming from here. I don't really know if you'd find yourself in a circumstance under a contract like this where you'd be knocked down to 5 to 15% of your original, contract or your revenue, but being at the whims of the people that hate you, i.e. YouTube and the big tech, yeah, I do see why he's upset about this.
Let me ask you, can you imagine if this show not only was never permitted to take risks per our contract as it relates to big tech guidelines, like as far as the content guidelines, right? There's content guidelines and there's advertiser guidelines. Can you just imagine a world where this show could never take risks in relation to those guidelines on, say, things like mRNA injections, election integrity, take your pick. But one step further, if this show had to be advertiser friendly on YouTube, those guidelines pretty much read, don't say anything offensive ever. Well, what's offensive? Whatever is stuck in Susan Wojcicki's craw that day.
Yeah, I get where he's going.
I wish those at the top in big conservative, with, granted, yeah, a lot of the money, wanted to do better.
That's where the differing, I would say, opinions or paths of how they want to take the fight differ. Steven is very pushy when it comes to YouTube's guidelines. He's been demonetized for years. He says things that they don't like. The Dailywire, they're a little more soft when it comes to stuff like that. But they also have their paywall, which is where Steven could talk about a lot of this stuff. Now, that would be entirely up to him if he wanted to talk about all these, I guess, not edgy, but like pushing the boundary of what YouTube wants you to be able to talk about. If he wants to be able to talk about that stuff, it's up to his discretion whether he wants to make it as publicly available as possible or put it behind a paywall. So,
the free content only exists because of those who subscribe. I've promised you we won't do more than one sponsorship spot per show. I will keep my word on that until this show ends.
And again, that's just what I was saying a minute ago. It's just a difference of how he wants to run things. Steven wants a platform, and the Dailywire, I think they were looking for an employee.
If there are enough of you out there, I will transition Mug Club into a full-scale network with independent content creators who don't want to be locked into slave contracts. Look, I understand that business relationships sometimes fall through. People don't see eye to eye. I get that. But there is a way to structure these contracts and a network. There's a world in which contracts and a network exists where everyone benefits with some semblance of fairness, transparency. There's no need to be enslaved like this. If you're out there right now and you're making content work, on whatever scale that may be, there are levels to this game. I understand that. And you'd like to
I'm at the beginning with 0. I'm at the bottom.
To have some backup? You'd like to have some brothers, sisters, Z's, and arms, some security without losing your shirt? Send your email to creators@louderwithcrowder.com and we'll talk. You want a partnership? Great. Can probably work something out.
I do like this approach because I think that there needs to be a network of conservative voices that have backing to be completely big tech safe, to have a platform where they can voice their opinions and not have the worry of being struck down. Now it also depends on where he puts his servers, because we remember how Parler was just completely struck down because they put their servers pretty much in the same hands of all these liberals. So Ian Crossland from Timcast, he's wanting to develop the same sort of network, and I think it'll be really good for conservative voices and people on the right to have that sort of avenue. And hey, I mean, someone up and coming like me, I would be looking at things like that too. I don't think I'd really ever be in a position where someone as big as the Daily Wire would be like, hey, we're looking at giving you a contract. I think Brett Cooper was their most recent to onboard, and I think she had like 500,000 subs when she onboarded. So I don't know if I'll ever get to that point. That'd be cool. But even as small as I am, if there's a avenue out there like this, I'd be jumping on that for sure.
If you feel in your gut that a lot of conservative content out there feels homogenous, feels sanitized, feels like they're missing some key points, there's a reason for that. There's a reason that you often find yourself asking, hey, I wonder why X won't talk about Y.
Now, I would say a lot of people probably don't go behind these paywalls, so they're really only watching the stuff on YouTube that has to be curated to the policy. So that's probably why. Now, if Steven's going to create this network, it's going to take a lot to get it to be as big as YouTube. And I just don't think that's I don't know if it's possible, because YouTube is not, at least on its face, it's not a political platform. It's just a video sharing platform for anything. I don't even know how many hours of YouTube videos is uploaded every day. It's in the hundreds of thousands. Steven is big enough to where he could do this by himself. So I don't know why he was searching around for a platform. Maybe he just wanted to see if there was anyone out there that would give him the security of not being censored anywhere like YouTube. But he just needs to do his own thing. I think he'll go much further with Mug Club. I really do. And I think he needs to pursue that. So we're going to listen to some of the Daily Wire's response, because I think it's important to see both sides of this little drama. I didn't really want my first video to be drama filled, but you know what? We're rolling with it because I think it's important. I really do think it's important to listen to this. So this is Daily Wire co-founder Jeremy Boring. Let's go through this now.
Our friend Steven Crowder has launched a new initiative called Stop Big Con. And in the video announcing the launch of the project, he talked about leaving the blaze and all the different offers that he fielded from other conservative organizations and what he thought were the real problems with those offers. And that's led a lot of people to speculate about whether or not the Daily Wire is one of the people who made him an offer. In particular, are we the ones who made the offer that he put up on the screen and talked about at length? And the answer is yes, that offer did come from the Daily Wire. I'm not trying to hide that fact. I'm not ashamed of that fact. In fact, I think it's a very good offer. But I think there's a lot of sort of misconceptions about the nature of the offer, the nature of the points. I think Steven misunderstood a lot of the points. And so the way we do here at the Daily Wire, we're just going to be incredibly transparent. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we came to be in conversations with Steven, how those conversations ended, and walk you just line by line through what the actual document that we sent over to him, a non-binding term sheet, what it actually said and why. I'm just going to walk you through it. Full transparency. This non-binding term sheet said...
Before we get into this, I just want to say, imagine if today's politicians, specifically the current White House administration, imagine if they had the same level of transparency that the Daily Wire has. I really gotta commend the Daily Wire for getting on this like less than 48 hours, I think, after, let's see, 19 hours ago, 2 days ago. Like 2 days after this was brought to light. And again, Stephen didn't say it was the Daily Wire, but they're like, hey, this is us. We sent him this. Imagine if there was that level of transparency in the presidential seat.
A 4-year initial term with 2-year renewal at DW's sole discretion. That just means Stephen's going to work for DW for 4 years. And if it's going really well, DW can retain him for an additional 2 years. 2, the fee. Remember, this is the minimum number that we thought would get the conversation started with Stephen. $50 million for the initial term, plus $25 million for the renewal term, if extended, paid in monthly installments.
50 million. Maybe 75 million. Now, who knows how many people would sign up for Mug Club? If he's got 300,000 people at $10 a month, do the math. Over 4 years, he'd be making a lot more. But to be offered 50 to 75 million over 4 to 6 years, just to keep doing what you're doing, with some ads and a little bit of extra content, that'd be hard to turn down.
Like I say, a pretty big number, but we thought for a talent like Stephen, this is probably the minimum number that's going to get us in the door so that we can sit down and talk to him. He'll deliver a 1.5-hour Louder with Crowder audio-video show of a quality and kind consistent with the shows that he's currently producing 4 days a week. That's 192 original episodes a year if you factor in 4 weeks of vacation.
Something I want to point out, Stephen said that this right here, along with the monthly, and also once a year production of content, he said that this was worse than the contracts on the left.
For that, if you miss a single piece of content. And the amount of content required is not in line with, frankly, it's worse than Disney. It's worse than ABC. It's worse than NBC. It's worse than CBS.
The amount of content, specifically is what he was referring to, is worse than all these liberal lefty organizations. I'm pretty sure they took into account exactly the amount of shows that he produces each year. If you're saying that that's worse than Disney, along with a monthly and a yearly content edition, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, you're already producing 90% of what you said is worse than Disney. So you're ragging on your own workload. At least that's the way I'm reading that.
Including all ad reads and promotions as requested by us. So
maybe he was also talking about the ad reads, because it's pretty apparent that Stephen doesn't like to do ad reads, which is fair. I don't think I would like to do that either.
That brings us to monthly content. What is monthly content? Well, at Dailywire, our members are entitled to an all-access once a month with most of our talent. And that's where our members get to interact with them, sort of one-on-one, ask them questions. So we're saying once a month he would have to do a 90-minute all-access and any promotions and ad reads that would go in that. Right now there are no ad reads in.
An hour and a half once a month to talk to your audience? He's complaining about that?
And annual content. This was a new concept. We said that Stephen would do one feature-length entertainment special. That's like a stand-up comedy special. And that Stephen would do one feature-length political special. And that's like a documentary, like What is a Woman? This is something we're doing with all of our talent now.
Okay, so that was something different. He wanted him to produce a comedy and like a major production annually. So there are two things there, and I can see how that might be a little overbearing. I don't know what goes into making a documentary. I can't assume it's very easy. And to have to worry about that, and also a comedy show, which Stephen already, he's a comedian, so I don't think that'd be that big of a deal. I just don't see how that's asking too much. And that was the $1 million fine, was if you didn't produce this once a year content, then yeah, we're gonna fine you quite a bit for that, because What is a Woman, which is what they're basing this off of, made a lot of money, brought them in a lot of subscribers. What is a Woman was massive. So, and sure, not all of them are going to be that massive. I don't think Candace's, her documentary that she released about Black Lives Matter, The Big Lie, I think it was called, I don't think that was as big as What is a Woman. I mean, obviously, I didn't watch it, so it didn't have that big of an impact on me, at least. So you can't expect them all to be that big. But I just don't see how when you're making 50 million over 4 years. That's a maximum reduction of what, 4 million? If you just don't do any of them for whatever reason. And on all of this, on all of my comments, there could have been negotiations, which there weren't any negotiations.
You saw it first with What is a Woman with Matt. Then in addition to his daily show, he brought us this amazing documentary. You saw it with Candace with Greatest Lie Ever Sold.
Greatest lie ever sold, not the big lie.
And we've got a lot more projects like that in the work with our other talent now. It's really become an important part of our business model. Here's the key, though. He doesn't have to pay for that out of his $50 million over the next 4 years. We would pay an additional amount every year for that. In the case of
he doesn't even have to pay for it.
the political documentary, we'd give another $1.25 million of production costs. In the case of the entertainment, depends on how it breaks down, but we'd give between $500,000 and $2.5 million more dollars.
$2.5 million?
Just this is more than 8 figures over the 4 years, in addition to the 50 over the next 4 years.
Wow. Dude, how are you complaining about this? I have watched both of these already, but it's just rehashing all these minute details. Oh, man. And again, I'm in the position of having 0 numbers, so I mean, I don't even think I make that first penalty, the $100,000 penalty. I don't think I make half that in a year. So all these numbers are just right over my head. But I don't know.
The rest of this document, you're welcome to read it. It's just legalese, and what it says is, if we decide to move forward, this isn't the whole document. We're going to have a longer document. We're going to have to negotiate these topics.
Negotiations.
Confidentiality. We're not going to tell people about the deal. He didn't sign this, so he doesn't have those confidentiality requirements, although I certainly expected some political or, I guess, personal and professional courtesy of him not going and reaming us publicly for making him an offer that he didn't like.
He didn't say the Dailywire, though, so I'm torn on that point because he didn't say the Dailywire. I wish he would have, because I wish he would have been very forthcoming. But I also don't know if I really like how he handled it. But he didn't call them out. So I don't know if I agree with Jeremy there. Everyone knew, or at least we're speculating that it was the Dailywire.
I don't owe Stephen a job, and Stephen doesn't owe me a show. We opened up a conversation in good faith. We made an offer. He didn't like it. Now he's burning us.
He's not burning you, but there should have been negotiations. And I will get to, finally, my take on the whole situation, my politic. I think it's kind of sad that Stephen went to this length before really negotiating anything. Now, again, like I said, I think Stephen needs to go on his own. I think he would probably do better than if he was at the Dailywire because of his personality, of how he handles Mug Club, of how he handles his videos that he makes, the content that he produces. I think he'll do better on his own because he's arguably just much more outspoken than some of the people at the Dailywire. And I love the Dailywire. I listen to them all day. I listen to Timcast. I listen to people on the left. I listen to the Young Turks. I try to diversify with the opinions that I hear, and I think this situation's sad. Personally, I hope that everyone involved can stay happy, can go forward and prosper, and do all that. But I just think the whole thing is kind of sad. But I respect the transparency that the Dailywire gave, and a part of me as well, like, I'm glad that Stephen made this public, just in the sense that as someone who doesn't know any behind the scenes, it's interesting to know the some of the discussions that go on. But I don't know if it really needed to be brought out like it was on Stephen's end. But if he's gonna take this, which he saw as an injustice, and start this network for all of these conservative voices, hey man, go for it. I think that'll be really helpful. So that is all I have for you guys today. I wasn't really sure how my first video was gonna go for politics. I'll try to get something more lighthearted next time. Maybe something not so lighthearted. I don't know. We'll see. I have to edit this video, see how things go. But hopefully you guys enjoyed. My Twitter is linked down below. I'm gonna try to post this to like Rumble as well, so I can get some, other audiences to myself. But yeah, that's it for this video. So hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.